Good afternoon, everyone. Just give a couple minutes for us to have a couple more people come in to the chat here. Okay, let's get going here. We'll hopefully be in and out here in about 15 to 20 minutes. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me here today. My name is Denis Rudenko, and I'm the head of sales at Oz Capital. Our main topic of discussion for today will be retirement. And more specifically, how do we ensure that we have enough money put away for a comfortable and enjoyable one? Now, this is a topic I decided to discuss today because it's actually something I'm going through with my mom, and actually both of them, but my mom's a bit older, with my mom and dad, at the present. So my mom just turned 70, and she is starting to draw on her pension, Canadian pensions, and she is still continuing to work. But it got me thinking about her retirement and how do we fund it with the help available from the government of Canada, and as well as money saved. So let's back up a second and for you guys to understand sort of the background here. I'm an immigrant. My parents and I immigrated to Toronto back in 1993 from Kiev, Ukraine. At that point, I really didn't understand why we had moved halfway around the world to start a new life. But when I got a little bit older, I realized that we moved here to deal with some health issues that I'd had as a child that would be better dealt with in a country like Canada. So, in other words, my parents gave up everything for my benefit and continue to do so well into my teens, 20s, and who am I kidding? They still support me today. So, few things that we're going to go through today, as I said, is the overview of the different types of pension plans that typically Canadians might have available to them throughout their retirement. And we're going to also discuss sort of a case study, how the Canadian pension plan provides for Canadians, and then what potential shortfalls there might be to draw from other types of retirement savings. And most and foremost, I'm gonna introduce you to Oz Capital and talk about, why we do what we do, how we achieve our impressive results, and how you can benefit by working with us today. Followed by a Q&A session. If there's anyone that has any questions, please feel free to keep those until the end, and I will address those as we go. So let's get started. So the first type of pension plan that we're going to focus on are employer pension plans. So these are specifically funded by companies that you might work for. Now, not all companies have pension plans, but many do. And you got to understand the basic types of pension plans available to employees in Canada. Each type has unique features that impact how your retirement benefits accumulate over your career. So first and foremost, we have the defined benefit plans, which promise a specified payment amount in retirement, which is calculated based on factors like your salary, your years of service, etc. The key advantage being here is predictability. The risk is managed by your employer. You're guaranteed a certain amount per month or per year, regardless of performance in the markets and whatnot. Next are defined contribution plans, where contributions are made by both you and your employer, but the retirement benefit depends on the investment's performance. So this plan shifts more responsibility to you as the employee, at the same time giving you control over your investment choices, but also bearing that investment risk. And this is the ones that we're going to be focusing a little bit more on. This might be your typical RSP plan or locked-in retirement account, or LIRA as they're known. Lastly, hybrid plans combine elements of both defined benefit and defined contribution plans and offer a middle ground with both security and some investment flexibility. Now, let's discuss the Canadian pensions that, all Canadians are entitled to, provided you've lived in Canada and paid into these plans for a certain amount of time. I'm not going to get into the details in the specific numbers, but typically, you need to have lived in Canada for about 40 years and worked in Canada for about 40 years to get the maximums of these plans, which is what we're going to focus on. Obviously, for us, like for a family like ours, being immigrants, we haven't lived here for 40 years, so my mom's amount's a little bit reduced, but anyways, so the Canadian pension plan is really the first one that you need to be familiar with. This is the one that every paycheck, a portion of your earnings while you're working in Canada, providing, you're working here for a significant amount of time, a portion of your earnings goes to the CPP, and you'll see that on your payment stub as an amount, as a monthly amount that gets taken out. There's a maximum per year that typically is taken out, and after you've reached that maximum, you no longer have to contribute for the rest of the year. And then the second cash flow that you will expect upon retirement is Old Age Security, or OAS, which is an additional program that offers Canadians that have worked and lived in Canada a monthly amount to ensure that they're taken care of. There's also the guaranteed income supplement, which is something that we won't focus on today. Again, it gets quite complicated with the calculations based on, again, if you're a lower income in retirement, you can apply to this other program that might give you another, a little bit more monthly cash flow in retirement. So the real question is, how much do you actually get from the government? So assuming you've lived and worked in Canada for the past 40 years, your monthly pension from OAS and CPP will top out just shy of $1,900. That, when I saw that, with respect to my mom, I said to myself, well, that doesn't seem like enough, because I mean, my mom lives in an apartment that she rents, and I mean, the rent alone in Canada, in Toronto specifically, is more than $1,900 a month, leaving a significant shortfall. So I did a quick little review on the cost of living in Ontario for seniors specifically. And you can see the breakdown of it in front of you here. Again, these are some pretty wide ranges, because obviously depends on lifestyle and the choices that you make in your retirement and the amount of hobbies and other things that you might want to do. But what you see is a fairly conservative estimate between housing and the costs associated with that, transportation, food, as well as entertainment, and healthcare, being, usually dental and vision care, which are not covered by OHIP. The average senior can expect to spend between $2,500 and $4,150 per month. And this is, again, averaged out across Ontario specifically, because that's our province, that's where we live in. There certainly are lower cost of living areas in Canada and provinces specifically, and even in Ontario. Obviously, you'll be in a very different situation if you're living in downtown Toronto versus one of the smaller sort of urban centers around Ontario. So the pensions provided by the government, at least for my mom's case specifically, are obviously not enough. So what's the answer? Well, earlier we discussed, employer pension plans and other retirement savings that individuals might have, hopefully with input from their employers. But even if you've just been, self-employed or a business owner, hopefully you've been saving some money and putting it away for retirement. So let's go a little bit deeper into what you can do to ensure a comfortable and fairly stable in retirement. And again, this is taken straight from sort of my experience with having to do this planning to help my mom. So what we did is I ran a case study for a fairly modest savings of $200,000 RSP balance, which RSP or Lira doesn't matter. Each one of those at age 71 converts to what's known as a RIF, or registered retirement income fund, or an LRIF for in the case of a LIRA, which is a locked-in retirement income fund. So we took that starting balance of 200,000 and we basically ran the numbers just to make a comparison of the type of performance that you might expect with an alternative investment product like the Oz Capital MIC versus a high interest savings account, which is, have pretty decent returns these days because the interest rates have obviously gone up. They're coming back down again, but you can still get a 4%, 4.5% in some cases high interest savings account. So for this particular example, again, we took the target return from Oz Capital MIC, which is 9% per year, versus the return on a HISA, which we took as a 4.5% return. And again, with respect to a retirement income fund, there are certain prescribed minimum amounts that you have to start taking every year, the year that you turn 71. So those amounts are percentages of your total balance that you have in that account. And again, it starts off at a couple percent, or maybe about 4.5% or something like that, and it goes up as you age every year. So what you see in front of you here is, again, a comparison. Now this is taking into account the RIF withdrawals, the prescribed minimum withdrawals that are being taken out every year. You'll see on the next slide, I've actually shown the levels of those withdrawals, but again, this is assuming $200,000 balance. And this just kind of goes to show what the slightly higher rate of return, which is the orange line, I shouldn't say slightly higher, it's a double the rate of return from the Oz Capital MIC can do versus your high interest savings account. So you can see by the age of 100, which is what we did the comparison of the age that we chose to stop at, essentially, your LRIF balance or your RIF balance, doesn't matter, it's just the two different types of accounts, is over $100,000 within the Oz Capital MIC scenario. Whereas with the high interest savings account, that balance has decreased all the way down to just shy of $19,000. So again, I mean, it looks good, and you can actually see your investment keeps growing within the Oz Capital MIC bucket by up until the age of 85. So because those minimum prescribed withdrawals are actually a little bit less than what our return is, you're actually compounding and growing your account balance. So at the peak, at the age of 85, that investment amount will have grown to $342,000. And now we can see what this does when we talk about the cash flows, because obviously if you have a bigger starting amount or a bigger balance in the account, your cash flow, aka that percentage that is prescribed by the government to take out, is going to be a bigger percent of a bigger bucket, or sorry, the exact same percent of a bigger bucket. Sorry, this is quite confusing, and I know it can be, and this is why I always tell anyone that's joining us to, please get in touch with me. I'm happy to take you through a specific scenario for your particular case. But again, what you see here, you can see we start off with $200,000 at age 65. So, those annual withdrawals are going to be exactly the same in that first year. However, you can see the orange line slowly start to creep up and up and up. And the reason for that is because you're seeing that previous chart, your balance is actually growing. So again, like I said, your percent amount is the same that you're taking out from both of these plans. But because the high interest savings account actually starts losing value because those withdrawals outpace the returns that you're getting, you're actually making pretty much the same or a little bit more. So at peak, you're getting about $12,000 cash flow from your high interest savings account. Whereas at the peak here in at 94,000 or 94,000 at 94 years of age, hopefully we all live that far or that long, you're making $49,671.51 per year, and this is a withdrawal that you have to take out. So again, you can really see the power of this start to come in as you get sort of around the 80s, and it's almost double what it would have been from the HISA. And again, that just continues to go up and up and up and up. So this is a great example of, again, what you can do with, you know, a very steady return profile from an alternative product like the Oz Capital MIC. So I've worked with financial advisors and their investors, as well as direct investors of our own for well over 10 years. And the number one piece of key feedback, the key piece of feedback that I kept hearing repeatedly from both advisors and their clients is that they want one thing from their portfolios, and that's peace of mind. And this is what we at Oz Capital offer: predictability. Now, let's take a step back a little bit, just quickly go over what the Oz Capital MIC is, and specifically what a mortgage investment corporation is, and why MICs have grown in popularity with both borrowers and investors in recent years. You see this beautiful chart in front of you. It's pretty confusing, I know. Simply stated, a MIC is a pool of investors' money, okay, that is invested in a portfolio of mortgages. MICs can then lend on a variety of properties in Canada and then offer investors the opportunity for diversified asset-backed investment. The interest earned on that portfolio of mortgages then gets passed on to investors in the form of monthly distributions or monthly cash flow. Those distributions can either be taken out and put into your bank account, or they can be reinvested to achieve some of that compound growth that we saw in the previous charts. So although MICs have been around for many, many years, since 1973, it's only recently that we've grown in popularity, or that they've grown in popularity, and we've grown in popularity as well, in popularity and use with borrowers and investors. So on the next slide here, we'll talk about some of the things that set us apart and how we specifically at Oz Capital manage the Oz Capital MIC. So first and foremost, our focus has always been internally and externally is on the people. We believe that having the right people at the helm, the right people underwriting the deals that go into our portfolio is the key. So we have over 65 years of combined underwriting experience between our two co-founders and our head underwriter. We have 3 sets of eyes on every deal. You can probably guess who those 3 sets of eyes are. Both of our co-founders are former mortgage brokers and, you know, have many, many years of experience and understand what every deal looks like and what things they should be putting in the portfolio, what we should stay away from as things get rocky. Speaking of rocky, some of the other ways that we mitigate the risk that is out there in the markets, because there's always risk, regardless of what you know, what the news media is telling us about us being in a great place or in a terrible place. We have a few important pieces to the MIC that we absolutely stand by. So the first set of those, the first tenet of that risk control is that we lend on liquid residential real estate. Now, in practice, what does that mean? So we're talking about houses and, you know, semi-detached, detached houses in areas that look like other houses on the street. I'm not talking about the color of the siding or the brick. We're talking about properties that are easily compared to other properties within that neighborhood or that area. In other words, we want to make sure that if it does come to that and a borrower defaults on their payments, we can go through and have an accurate appraisal, and that appraisal value stays the same as it was before when we underwrote the loan, and then also make sure that that appraisal actually has something backing it, i.e. comparable properties that have sold on that same street. Which takes us to the next point. We only lend in the province of Ontario. The reason for doing so, and again, without getting into complicated provincial laws around power of sale and foreclosure and all that, Ontario is the most lender-friendly province in Canada, or is one of the most lender-friendly. There's a couple others that come close, but essentially what that means is that we can trigger the power of sale process for a particular property 15 days after non-payment. In practice, again, we don't typically do that. We try and work with our borrowers to make sure that they get back on track. But it is a great sort of safety net for us to fall back on in cases where we do need to get a property off of our books and recoup our investors and our own money. We only lend short term, so we do maximum 12-month terms, 6 to 12 months typically. Again, what that does is it allows us the ability to pivot very quickly as market conditions change. We're not locked into a super long term, and we can adjust the risk in our portfolio either up or down depending on market conditions. We also ensure that each loan has a clear exit strategy. In other words, what are they going to do after that 6-month term or 12-month term? Are they trying to improve their temporarily bruised credits? Are they, potentially looking to sell the property? Again, we need to understand how this particular borrower is going to move on past being a borrower with Oz. And the last point, and probably in my point of view, probably the most important one, really is the fact that every dollar in our portfolio is secured through real estate. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a dry mouth here. Bear with me. So every dollar is secured through real estate, and arguably some of the most in-demand real estate being real estate in Ontario. I mean, others might argue, but in my mind, Ontario is still one of the safest and most socially friendly and full of opportunity provinces in Canada, and really, pretty high up there in the world. So some great real estate that we have on our portfolio. And here's our results. Again, this is going back to, discussing predictability and versus unpredictability. This is our results since inception. What you see here is the orange line at the top. The straight line is the performance of Oz Capital MIC since its inception. And then the other two lines you see there are basically the S&P TSX index, essentially is the stock market index. And then the other sort of lightly orange line is the Canadian bond index. Again, not saying that that those markets aren't going to go back up and sort of provide the returns as well, which they certainly do and have historically done well. But when we talk about predictability, it's always nice to have a portion of your portfolio going up in a straight line versus doing this as the markets fluctuate. This is especially important, again, in my personal point of view, when we talk about retirement. So, how to invest with us? Well, we make it pretty easy. So I'm a registered dealing representative, exempt market dealing representative of the Ontario Securities Commission through our exempt market dealer, Belco, which means that I can work directly with clients. So the way we do it is essentially it's a 3-step process. We have an initial consultation and recommendations based on, your particular financial situation. The next step is to complete all the fun paperwork. So the KYC, or know your client, and suitability review, account opening forms, and all of the fun paperwork that I'm always buried under for good parts of my day. But luckily I'm pretty good at it, and I've been doing it for quite a while. So I'll take you through all of it and do as much of it on my end as possible. And lastly, you can invest with Oz Capital MIC once we open the accounts for you and once we get all the paperwork done. And you can benefit from that steady and reliable performance for years to come. Again, let's just bring it back. It's important for us that we treat our clients as the most important part of our business and ensure that we support them every step of the way. We provide a stable and reliable investment solution, which is professionally managed by our seasoned team. You can directly invest with us without going through a middleman, or you can also invest through your financial advisor. And Osmic is available in all account types. So again, our aim is to provide certainty in an uncertain world. Every situation is unique. We know every client is unique. I know every client is unique. So let us take the guesswork out of your financial future. I will personally touch base with each and every one of you that's joined us here today to discuss how we can help. And that is my cell phone number you see there. You can call me anytime. You've got my email through the registration links, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon. And now we'll turn it over to our Q&A section. And I do have a question that actually has come in from an email here, so I'll go ahead and start that off. So the question is, sorry, 1 second, let me bring it up. What is your minimum investment amount? Okay, so this is a popular question because some alternative investment, I've had to answer this one a few times. Some alternative investments have pretty steep minimums. We try and sort of democratize alternatives if possible, as much as that sounds, you know, like a tall order. But we specifically have made our initial investment amount fairly low, so only $5,000. Now again, it might make sense to put in a bigger chunk depending on your particular situation. But look, we are happy to take in as much or as little as you want if that fits your particular situation and portfolio. So great question, and thank you for that. We'll just see if any other questions come in here. Okay, looks like everybody's being shy. So look, feel free to email me directly with any other follow-up questions you might have. Connect with me. My email signature has a book a meeting link, which you can book, you know, 15-30 minute call with me. I'm happy to do these calls after hours potentially, because I realize that a lot of people work. So and then might not have the time during the 9 to 5 kind of window. So please reach out to me, send me a note. We'll find a time to get together virtually or in person potentially if it makes sense, and I can take you through kind of the specifics of your financial situation and how we can potentially help secure your retirement. Thanks very much for joining us here today, everyone. Have a great day.